Hi there. My name is Kendra Swalls. I am a podcast host, business coach, and photographer, which is why I'm here today to talk to you about the importance of having really great photos for your business, especially when you are trying to be a guest on podcasts. So we're going to talk today a little bit about how to get your headshot in the game. So let's start with why your photos matter. It's usually the first thing people see. So it's the first time that they are having a chance to put your face to your name. So you want to make sure to create a really great impression. We've all heard the saying before that you only get one chance to make a great impression. And a lot of times, especially when you are pitching yourself to podcast, you're doing that with your photos. So you want to make sure that that photo gives a really great first impression of you, your business, and your personality and what you bring to their show. It also helps viewers to get a really good feel of who you are and your style so that they can determine if you are a good fit for being a guest on their podcast or collaborating with them. And it can also, unfortunately, be what makes or breaks the difference between someone choosing to work with you and someone choosing not to. Now, you'll see two examples over here on the right-hand side of photos. They're both decent photos, but as you can tell, probably the one on the top is going to be the more professional looking image. While this may be what you look like when you show up for your podcast interview, the first impression you want to give is your best impression. So sending a really well done headshot or marketing photo is going to really help you to stand out among the people who are sending the photos that were taken with the selfie or just through like a screenshot of a recording from a Zoom call. All right, so now that we kind of know why your photos matter, let's look at how are our photos used. Well, you know it's important because when you're pitching to somebody and putting it into your pitch deck or putting it into your one sheet, you want to make sure you have that great photo. But how else are your photos really being used by podcasters? So two ways that we're using our photos. One is as a podcast guest. You are sharing your headshots, you're sharing your marketing photos because they're going to use those when they are promoting and sharing about your episode. A lot of times this is done through episode graphics, like the one you see here, but they're also shared on social media. They're put out into your email blast. They're used as video thumbnails. If it's a video interview, they can be put onto the podcast website or the show notes page. So your photos are going to end up on all the places that they are marketing their podcast. Now, I will say as a podcast host, when I see someone send me a photo that is clearly not a really professional looking image, it makes it harder for me to market and promote their episode because next to professional images from my podcast or other guests that I've had, they just don't match the quality of what I'm putting out in my marketing for my podcast. Now, as a podcast host, your photos are used for creating cover art, marketing your podcast, and it's a way for people to connect with you as the podcast host. So if you are a host and you are watching this, just keep in mind, it's a really great idea to have a photo of yourself on the cover of your podcast because you want to make sure people know that when they're listening to you, they can put a face to the name and to the voice, and it just helps to build even stronger connections. All right, so let's talk a little bit about what types of photos you need. So we know that this is an important piece. We know how they're being used, but what kinds of photos do you really need and what should you be sending when you are either requesting or applying to be a guest on a show, or once you have accepted you and you're sending them your photos for marketing? So the first one you're going to need is just traditional headshot. This is kind of business basics. You want to make sure you have a really nice headshot where you're looking at the camera. You have a simple background behind you. This is something that you can send off no matter whether it's for a podcast guesting or you're pitching to be a speaker at an event or on a virtual summit, or you're just putting yourself out there on the internet. This is traditionally one thing you want to make sure you have in your photos that you are using to market yourself and your business. Now, specifically, you want to share podcast specific if you are a podcast host, or if podcasting is what you do for part of your business, you want to include those in your photos. This can also mean if you are like a photographer, you might want to include photography style photos. So pictures of you actually doing what it is that you do. That way, when they're sharing photos of you for your podcast episode, if you tell them that you're a makeup artist, they can share a photo of you doing what it is that you actually do. And then personality shots. These are some of my favorites as a photographer to take because this is where I get to really showcase who you are, what you do, what makes you unique and creative. And especially now when, the headshot and the traditional headshot is really great to have. It's very professional, but a lot of people want to connect with who you are as a person, and they're going to want to get to know you better, especially if you're going on to a podcast and you're going to be sharing your story or they're going to hear your voice. They want to know a little bit more about like, what type of person are you? So they know, can I connect with this person? So showing off your personality, getting creative, showing your personal style, that's all really helpful too. And then lastly, you want to make sure you have really good marketing photos. These are ones that include some white space, and I'll go over all this and we'll get a little more into detail in each of these in just a second. But these are the ones that you want to make sure you have available so that you yourself and the person that you're sharing your images with have the ability to use them for marketing in a variety of ways. So let's look a little more specifically at each of these different types of photos. So let's start with headshots. These are your typical headshots, typically from the waist or torso up, looking directly at the camera and making eye contact. These are great photos that can be used for social media, for profile images, things like that. Because again, when you have a photo where you're looking at the camera and the viewer can connect with you with eye contact, it makes it a really strong photo. So looking directly at the camera is always really nice. I know a lot of times we want to do photos of us looking away or laughing, but we need at least one photo of you looking directly at the camera. You want to make sure you have a clean, simple background, nothing too distracting, especially because sometimes you're going to want to, your host that you're working with may go in and remove the background to have the color behind you match their branding. It's a lot easier if your background is already really, really simple. Professional dress and attire. Obviously, this is your more professional presentation of your brand, so you want to make sure you dress a little more professionally. Most likely, you're not going to be coming in with a branded t-shirt or a baseball cap. You want to make sure you keep dressed up just a little bit because this is probably going to be the image that represents you most of the time going out into the world. And then smiling versus serious, that is completely based on your personality, the industry that you're in, and what you would typically do in a photo if you were taking, like professional family photos or other professional images. And then, of course, you want to make sure it's well lit and professional. Again, this is kind of the image. If you only get one image to send out or to use in your marketing, this is going to be the image. So you want to make sure that it is definitely well lit and professional looking. That doesn't necessarily mean it has to be done by a professional. We'll talk about those tips in just a minute, but you do want to make sure it presents a professional front. All right, the next example are your podcast photo examples, or this could be industry specific. I'm sticking with podcast here since that's what we're here to do right now. But if you are a makeup artist, if you are a virtual assistant, if you're a photographer, you can modify these to match whatever your industry is. So you want to include props. That could be headphones, microphones. Like I said, in other industries, it can include a camera, makeup brushes, any of the tools that you use to do what it is that you do. You can shoot it in a studio or an office setting, wherever it is that you do your job. That's a great place. You can also rent studio spaces if you are, recording or working out of your home office and it's not really photo worthy. There's tons of ways you can rent spaces in your area to do these photos. You can invite a friend to pose as your guest or your client. And these can be more relaxed, a little more casual. This is sort of you in your element. This is you in your everyday setting. And so you want to make sure it feels that way and doesn't feel like that it's too posed or overly done. All right, your next style of photos are your personality photos. Again, these are some of my favorites. This is where we get to really get creative. You can use color and creative backgrounds and wardrobe and angles and all the fun things. So you want to make sure that when you are creating these images, you're really thinking about who am I and who do I want my audience to connect with? What parts of me do I want them to connect with? You can use unique locations and backgrounds. Again, this is where you can have a lot of fun playing around with color and style and wardrobe and lighting. And you could get studio spaces. You could get, this image on here that's black and white. If you really love black and white images, then share those images in black and white. If you love big, bold, bright colors and laughter, share that. If you have a favorite place that you like to go, a coffee shop, a music store, a restaurant, a park, if you like to go hiking, then use that in your personality photos. This is where you really get to show off who you are as a person so that people can connect with you. So you want to include props and hobbies and activities that you enjoy. Again, just anything that's going to help the viewers and the audience to go, oh yeah, I love finding cute coffee shops, or oh my gosh, I really love his style here. This is so creative. And I love just how edgy and fashion forward it really is. Those are the things that people are going to be drawn to. So show that off in those photos. All right. And then the last set here is marketing photos. So for marketing photos, these are the photos that you're probably going to be sending out sort of in your pitch deck, or if you send out to a podcast host, you say, here are the photos that you are, have access to use, or you're using them to market your business yourself. A couple of tips for these is, one, this is the big one. You want to utilize white space. Okay. White space means that you are leaving all of this extra room here, which may feel a little awkward sometimes because we're kind of trained to put our, focal point right in the center everything. The problem with that is that if you are creating marketing images and you want room to add text, having a center focused or, an image that takes up the whole photo makes it hard to add in that extra text. So leaving some white space, again, it doesn't have to be white, here, even with this green wall, there's room to put text. That's really helpful, especially if you're sending these to a podcast host, because they may want to overlay your marketing photo with their information, the episode information, their podcast information, where they can find the episode, things like that. So providing that is really, really key. So I would say next to having a headshot, having a marketing photo with some great white space is kind of the second thing you'd make sure you want to have in your photo sort of files. You can include a mix of professional and more casual poses and styles. Again, it's a kind of a mix of the headshot and your personality ones. But again, these are your marketing. This is putting your business out there. So you want to make sure it really fits with your business and your business style. You can use props to show off what you do. So you can see here, we've got a camera, the laptop, here she's writing little thank you notes. So including props and things like that. Include business partners or team members. So if you have a team or a business partner you work with, you can include these in them in your photos as well. And again, it's a great way to show off your office space. And if you don't have an office space that you really feel like is photo worthy, you can always rent a space. Or if you have a friend that has a great space, you can borrow their space as well. All right. So now that we know what those types of photos are that you need to be getting, let's talk about how to get them. Now, one question I get asked a lot is, I know I need to have great photos. I just don't think I can afford to have them done, especially if I need them on a regular, ongoing basis. So here's some tips for how to get really great photos on a budget. Okay, tip number one is, guys, everyone has a camera, a really great camera right here on your phone, iPhone, Android, whatever you're using. They have really amazing cameras built in. So you can use and get great photos with just your iPhone. You can see in this example here, she's got it set up with a little tripod. Tripods are great. Now, the second tip, or the kind of top tip when it comes to creating your own photos, especially if you don't have a professional that's looking for these things, is your lighting. Lighting can make or break your photo. So the key is really good lighting. Now notice here in this example photo how the light is kind of coming onto her face. She's really well lit. She's got a nice background. That's a great photo. If you're trying to take a photo in a dark room with no natural light, or only using your overhead lights, you're going to get dark circles. It's going to look dark and it's just not going to have a professional feel. So one tip I love to give for finding great light is hold up your hand. And as you can see in my little video in here, so my light is hitting right here on my hand. As I turn my hand, you can see the shadows start to hit on the different parts of my hand here. And if I turn my hand all the way this way, my palm facing me is now completely shadowed and the part behind me is bright. If this is my face right here, I don't want my face facing away from the light. I want my face facing towards the light. So the key is you want to have light coming onto your face as evenly as possible. The best thing is to have natural lighting. So near a window or outdoors. Great. If you're going outdoors, do it kind of under a shaded patio, but with light coming onto you. You just want to make sure you never want to have a super bright light source behind you and no light in front of you. Now, you can use studio lights or ring lights are really great. Everyone can go on Amazon and get a great ring light. Those can be really helpful if you're in a pinch and your photos have to take place or you want them in your recording studio or in your office and you don't have great light. You can use a ring light or things like that. Just make sure, ideally, natural light is best. If that's not an option, ring light or photo lights are next to best. All right, next tip is to use a tripod and a remote or timer. So we don't want the selfie. We don't want you doing this in all of your photos. We don't want the arm coming out. So we want to make sure that we are setting up our camera or our phone on a tripod. Using a remote, you can go again on Amazon, get a really cheap little remote that Bluetooth connects to your phone or your camera. Or if you have an Apple Watch, they have a built-in remote for your iPhone as well. That allows you to set it up, make sure everything looks good, step back and make sure you don't have that selfie arm. It looks like it's, you can pose yourself with your hands on your desk or working with something in your hands, and it looks a little bit more professionally done. And declutter your background. So you can see in this example, she's got a nice bookcase behind her. That's really nice. You can have I've got my bookcase in my wall back here that I always shoot on. Anything that's kind of solid, clean, staged always looks best. If you don't have a background like that you can always purchase a backdrop or even just buy a plain sheet and hang it somewhere behind you. Just make sure you iron it really nicely first and create a clean backdrop. That's always helpful too. And then for editing, you can use built-in editing features off of, your phone that are built in. Those are really helpful. Or, editing apps like Lightroom. Those can be good to help kind of just give your photos a little extra pop of color. Even if you pull your photo into Canva, they have some editing tools as well. And then my last tip for getting great photos on a budget is to ask a friend for help. If you have another business owner friend that also needs photos, take an afternoon and just take pictures of each other. That way you're not having to deal with a tripod and setting it up with a timer, and then y'all both kind of benefit. You're both getting really great photos and you have someone helping to encourage you and get you kind of hyped up, be like, oh, that looks so good. Or, okay, maybe just turn a little bit this way or, tilt this way or hold it this way. And so having that feedback. So asking a friend for help, especially if it's someone else who is in the business world or understands the need for having really great photos, then that can be really helpful. And it's a win-win for both of you. Now, again, there's always going to be a time when you should invest in a professional photographer. I always say if you are really wanting to market yourself and put yourself out there and get guesting spots on podcasts or on videos and things or speaking events, you want to have really professional photos, at least for your headshot and your main marketing images. So here are some tips for finding and hiring a professional photographer. One, it does not have to break the bank. I think there's this misconception that hiring a photographer costs thousands of dollars or even upwards of $600 to $800. And while yes, there are photographers out there that are going to charge you a decent amount, you can find photographers that will charge you just a small portion of that for your headshots, especially if all you need is just one or two professional headshots. So it does not have to break the bank. Now, if you don't know how to find a photographer in your area, I encourage you to go on Instagram first, because obviously it's a great place to find other small business owners. And type in brand photographer and then your area. So I'm in the Dallas area. I could type in brand photographer DFW or brand photographer Dallas, and it's going to pull up a ton of photographers in my area, especially ones that specialize in these types of photos, because not all photographers are the same. We're not all created equal, and we don't all specialize in the same thing. So you want to find someone who really specializes in brand photography, so that they know the angles and the things that they want to capture and how to capture you and your business in a way that's going to look really professional, but also fun and creative, because that's exactly what they do. hiring a family photographer or a wedding photographer to do your headshots and brand photos. While you may get really great photos, it's really best to find someone that specializes in that genre. And then ask them if they offer discounts for signing up for multiple sessions. So a lot of times brand photographers, they understand that, you need professional images and you need them updated on a regular basis. So a lot of times what they'll do is they will offer packages where they'll say, if you do 4 sessions a year with me, then I give you a discount per session. Or if you do 2 sessions a year, I give you a discount and a payment plan. So there's ways to make sure that you are getting really great photos on a regular basis. And then you're able to kind of spread out that cost and build it into just your cost of doing business. And then finally, find a photographer that matches your style and personality. Look at their portfolio, ask for examples of images, ask for full galleries so you can see start to finish what a session was going to look like and what you're going to get back. Make sure you're going to get digitals. Make sure that you are getting all the different styles and looks that you want in a session. Ask questions and don't be afraid to say, I don't think we're a good fit. If you're going into someone, your style is very laid back, but the photographer that you were referred to is real high fashion, that may not be a good fit, and vice versa. So make sure you are taking time to really look at what does their portfolio look like? What does their style look like? And is it going to match what you want for your representation of your brand? All right. So I hope that helps you to feel a little more comfortable and confident about what types of photos you need and how to get them. If you have questions or want to reach out and ask for help finding a photographer in your area, please feel free to contact me. You can find my contact information here at girlmeansbusiness.com, or you can find me on all the socials at Girl Means Business. And I hope you have learned something that will help you to take really great photos to market your business.